overcast afternoon, and Chuck Nelson, who just kicked a 23-yard field goal to put the Vikings on the scoreboard, now will be kicking off to the Bengals. Tim McGee, number 85, and Stanford Jennings next to him. The Bengals have not been an outstanding special teams unit this year. And if the Vikings have any kind of an edge today, it may be in that area.
Along their trademark.
Nelson's kick is going to the speedster McGee, 2 yards in the end zone, has problems with it, and will down it for a touchback right there. James Brooks with an 8-yard pass reception from Boomer Esiason and a Chuck Nelson field goal accounting for the scores as we take a look at other scores from around the league. And Sam White's talking to his team on.
Again, they huddle on the sidelines. That may be the indication that they're going to run right out and go with the no-huddle offense again. And that's what it looks like they're going to do for the Bengals. How will the Vikings handle this drive? They didn't do so well last time. Looked confused and disoriented.
1st and 10 at the 20-yard line. Boomer Esiason, first full year as a starter. Eddie Brown in motion. Esiason is going deep for Eddie Brown, and Brown is there and lost his footing and is stopped at the 21, but a big play for Cincinnati.
Let's take a look at Eddie Brown in motion. Came across the formation and then just splits the seam of the double zone of the Vikings. And Boomer Esiason, a perfect delivery of the football, and if Brown could have somehow kept his footing, there's no question that he would have scored. But on that bootleg play, perfectly splitting the zone, Eddie Brown.
Willie Teal and Mike Lush on the tackle, and the second-year speedster, he's a game breaker. And now the Bengals threaten again. 1st and 10 on the Viking 26. Brooks inside the 20, and a gain of almost 8. David Howard on the tackle for James Brooks, who goes into the game second to Kurt Warner of Seattle in rushing in the AFC.
The blocking at the point of attack was excellent that time. His tight end Eric Caddis is making a block right there on David Howard. Look at the cut up inside by James Brooks. The second time now that the Bengals have tested their left side offensively behind Munoz. Big yardage both times.
2nd down and 3 at the 19 for the Bengals with 7:09 to go in the first quarter. And this is Johnson banging off defenders and getting a first down to the 11-yard line. John Harris and Chris Martin on the tackle.
And again, Anthony Munoz just collapsed that side of the defensive line. He took Mulaney clear to the inside. An easy cut to the outside for Johnson. Right now up front, looks like the Battle of the Pits is being won by Cincinnati.
James Brooks going into the game averaging 5.2 yards a carry, leading AFC rushers. And Johnson, in a brief appearance this year, is 5.8. Jesse Solomon replaces David Howard. Solomon will see a lot of action off the bench today. 1st and 10 at the 11. Here's Johnson wide open. And a fine play by Scott Studwell inside the 5, preventing an apparent touchdown. They get to the 3.
Well, Cincinnati not being very subtle about where they're going to run the football. They repeatedly challenged the right side of Minnesota defensively, and they're having remarkable success.
And the Bengals have usually come up with something when they've been inside the 20 this year, and now they go with Stanley Wilson, number 32, in the backfield. Here's Johnson getting closer to the goal line. Keep in mind that the Bengals can get a first down without getting a touchdown, and they're getting close to that yardage now. David Evans making the stop for the Vikings. It'll be 3rd down.
This is an area where Cincinnati has used before, where they put Anthony Munoz at a tight end. He caught a touchdown pass.
Last week he was double covered by Seattle on a similar play. 3rd and 1. And there's Stanley Wilson in for the touchdown. Fourth touchdown of the year for Stanley Wilson.
You can see Scott Studwell even cheating to that side, but the entire right side of the Minnesota defense is just obliterated.
And Sam White said there's a possibility that at some point early, second or third kickoff, we might see one of those pooch short kicks by the Bengals. There's Darren Nelson back there.
The one thing we know about Cincinnati, they're not afraid to try anything at all. And with the lead, this would be the perfect time to try it.
Not this time. And Darren Nelson on the 3. To the 20. 25, 30. Darren Nelson with a fine return gets it beyond the 40-yard line, where the kicker, Jim Breach, makes the stop. Well, there's a Thanksgiving weekend of college. Alfred Anderson is the running back along with Nelson. First and 10 on the Cincinnati 25. Here is Anderson with an option toss, completes it to the tight end, Steve Jordan. And Horton makes the tackle and a 17-yard gain. And who says the Vikings can't use a little razzle-dazzle?
And I'm sure Sam White is so upset he can hardly stand it. He said both Anderson and Rice were quarterbacks before. We know they can run the play action. They haven't done it for 3 weeks, so we're going to be watching for it. They won't get away with it, and look what happens. Wide open.
Lewis inside the 5-yard line. It'll be 3rd down and a holding penalty against.
Half the distance to the goal line and a 1st down.
That's the 3rd holding call on the Cincinnati defense. Louis Breeden.
Well, that's a great way to sustain drives, continually giving the offense 1st downs. Let's watch Anthony Carter and Louis Breeden. Well, I guess, yeah, we could call that holding as he just knocks. Anthony wants to make sure the flag comes in. There it is. You're allowed 1 hit within that 5-yard zone. You're not allowed to grapple him and wrestle him to the field.
Half the distance, it'll be an automatic 1st down, 1st and goal on the 4. So the 2 corners, Lewis Billups and Louis Breeden, have been guilty of holding. Here's Darren Nelson diving to about the fumble, but the officials say the whistle had blown. Tim Crumrye and Mike Hammerstein on the play.
And Gene Barth says 2nd down. Not appreciated very much.
The ball carrier was ruled down by contact before the fumble. 2nd down.
That's the first time an announcement has been made on a play in which there was no penalty.
And I hope Gene Barth, the referee, realizes how nice that is to have an explanation come up on a play like that. That's nice job, Gene.
2nd and goal on the 3. 14-3 Bengals. Vikings threatening again. David Huffman is the 3rd tight end here. Wilson getting a rush. Try to get the ball to Allen Rice. David Fulcher defending on the play, and that time the offensive line protection down for Wade Wilson.
Well, one of the few times today, but that's the play of an experienced quarterback. Wade Wilson may be the backup to Tommy Kramer, but he's been in the league for 6 years, and that's an excellent example of avoiding a sack. And there are few places on the field worse to take a sack than on your opponent's goal line. That was a good, smart play by Wade Wilson.
He rose to the occasion last week against the Giants, even though the Vikings lost. Now faces a 3rd and goal on the 3, and a timeout has been called by the Vikings.
Timeout. Minnesota's 1st timeout.
And a smart timeout, I would think, here.
Well, the crowd thinks it's because they made a lot of noise. I think it was confusion on the part of the Vikings. And then they ran into the middle of the line. Let's see what Jerry Burns and Bob Schnelker have in store here.
They have 3 wide receivers this time. Hassan Jones joins Carter and Leo Lewis. On a blitz, Nelson will score easily, and the Bengals were blitzing, and it was a piece of cake for Darren Nelson, who has scored his 2nd touchdown, believe it or not, just 2 on the year rushing. And the Vikings get back into this game trailing 14-9. This has been a wide open game. Razzle-dazzle on both sides, big pass plays on both sides, and scoring. And we have 1:40 to go, and now it'll be up to Chuck Nelson to try to cut the deficit to 4.
You really take the risk with that blitz on the goal line. Cincinnati burned badly that time.
Coleman will hold for Nelson. And it is now 14-10 in favor of the Cincinnati Bengals. Keep in mind that the Vikings come into this game 6-5, the Bengals at 7-4, and here was Nelson's touchdown.
And watch 2 things. We're going to see Fulcher come on the blitz. He'll be picked up. The trap is going to come across the formation. Let's take a look at it. But watch number 33 come on the blitz. Watch him come on the blitz right in the middle. He's picked up. There's the trap. And an easy walk-in touchdown. An easy walk-in touchdown for Darren Nelson. And that's the risk you run when you blitz your strong safety. Once you're past the line of scrimmage, clear sailing.
Darren Nelson, who last week passed Fran Tarkenton as the 6th all-time leading rusher for the Minnesota Vikings. Scores from around the league. Pittsburgh leading Cleveland, and that's good news for the Cincinnati Bengals. Pitchers duel in Chicago.
Safety for the Bears. Boy, that's surprising that defensively they're able to score points.
Chuck Nelson will be kicking off, and back again for the 3rd time, Tim McGee and Stanford Jennings. McGee on the left, the chief kickoff returner for the Bengals. And it'll go to McGee at the goal line. McGee in the 20. Cuts inside and showing some of the speed. In the Minnesota territory. And the last man with a shot is the kicker. And coming out of nowhere is Willie Teal to prevent a touchdown. A 94-yard kickoff return by Tim McGee.
Well, when he first starts up the field, he stays to this side, gets a good block, looks like he's caught, and then back across the field. And Chuck Nelson looks like he's got some speed. He's going to be outrun, but out of the left view of your screen, Willie Teal finally gets McGee out of bounds. But boy, that's the way to start up offensively when you can set up shop at the 5-yard line. What a play of big games. Of big plays we've seen so far early.
The rookie from Tennessee, who was the 2nd pick in the 1st round by the Bengals, who now have a 1st and goal on the 5. 14-10. And the Vikings haven't had much time to savor their touchdown. Here's Stanley Wilson in for the touchdown. Boy, that was fast. Second touchdown of this opening quarter for Stanley Wilson.
Let's look at it from behind the play. Just a straight I formation. Look at the lead block by Montoya. Then Bill Johnson. A good lead block. And Stanley Wilson easily into the end zone. Last 2 touchdowns we've seen by Darren Nelson. That time by Wilson. It doesn't get much easier than that.
Well, there's Wilson, who scored, and the man who set it up, Tim McGee, who returned the kickoff 94 yards. And now Jim Breach will try to add the 21st point for the Bengals. It's perfect. And it's 21-10. And we still have 1:15 remaining in the 1st quarter. And McGee, with tremendous speed, already joins a great wide receiving core, including Chris Collinsworth and Eddie Brown.
There's no use doing any projections here as to what the final score might be. Already 31 points scored in the 1st quarter. This may be a record setter if they continue at this pace. The one thing you have to say about Cincinnati and that touchdown, what they've shown earlier, that up front, the Bengal offensive line, which is one of the best in the league, is completely dominating Minnesota. Huge holes.
Coming up next, it'll be the Dallas Cowboys and the Washington Redskins. That game will not be seen by our viewers in the Cincinnati area. And, of course, the Redskins tied with the Giants at 9-2 for first place in the NFC East, and Dallas 2 games behind at 7-4. And the offensive line, there's Munoz and McGee, and an offense that have put 21 points on the board, taking a well-deserved breather right now.
What Dave Remington needs, number 50, is bigger arms. I mean, seriously, a guy's got to have a nozzle somewhere and roll those things up. Those are the biggest arms I have ever seen. Dave back this week. He's been on the Bengal lineup for a while with a bad knee, but Kazurski filled in at center. Now Kazurski moves over to left guard, and Dave Remington, an all-world Nebraska football player, back in for Minnesota. Doesn't appear, I mean, for Cincinnati, rather, doesn't appear to have hurt their rushing game.
Not in the least.
They are really removing the Vikings from the line of scrimmage.
There's the Pooch kick, and it comes on their third kickoff, and it goes out of bounds. Jim Breach couldn't keep it in play, and so there goes that gimmick, and they'll go back 5 yards and kick it from the 30-yard line. This is the way this game has gone so far. The Vikings have a field goal and a touchdown starting from the 26 and the 41. And the Cincinnati Bengals are perfect.
Well, the third one made it a lot easier when you only have to put together a 5-yard drive to get some points. Credit that one to Tim McGee. Sam Weitz doesn't want to go in to the halftime locker room with anything left in his playbook. He's using everything early.
And so are we.
He's going to he's going to have to be creative at halftime.
And so are we.
And so are we.
Breach will kick off, and now Rufus Best goes deep for the Vikings.
Hey, this is a fun game. I'm enjoying this.
This is the way they all should be. And again, a swift kick, and it's picked up by the short man, Alan Rice. And Rice will bring it to about the 40-yard line. And Breach a little upset with himself. I don't know whether he was trying to pooch that one or kick it deep. The Bengals, of course, as they have all day, have been indicating a fumble that they've recovered.
They're 0 for 4. They've been indicating that they have the ball 4 times and haven't got it yet.
And so the Vikings starting out from the 40-yard line, and the way this game has gone, that's great field position.
Yeah, with Breach in that kick, I really don't know whether he was trying to pooch it again or drive it deep, but he did neither, and that really gave Minnesota an excellent chance to start in great field position.
Look at that first down. Look at those yardage on first down.
Defensively, these guys stayed in the locker room.
First and 10 for the Vikings on the 40-yard line. Darren Nelson holding the ball like Walter Payton does. Brings it out to the 43 where Carl Zander makes the stop. Under a minute to play in the first quarter. And a wild first quarter indeed. Bengals coming into the game as the only team with a winning record who've allowed more points than they've scored. Second and 7. And Wilson wants to get points back in a hurry. Carter is back there, and it is out of bounds. Lewis Breeden caught it, but out of play.
And it's a good thing for Minnesota that ball was out of bounds because Breeden had Carter played absolutely perfectly. Wilson should have never thrown that football. If he could have kept it in bounds, Breeden had to play all the way. Carter might have had to interfere with him just to keep him from intercepting the pass.
So with 14 seconds to go in the first quarter, it is 3rd down and 7 at the 43.
And where Minnesota's had all their success passing has been working the other side against Lewis Billups. They may let Breeden go for a while after that coverage.
3 wide receivers. Wilson getting a rush and drills it, and Carter has it and is brought down ferociously by David Fulcher again, but not before the Vikings have another first down into Cincinnati territory. Gain of 17, and that will do it for the first quarter.
Let's keep an eye on Anthony Carter working to the inside of Breeden, but Cincinnati dropping back into the deep zone. Look how Anthony feathers his steps, and that is an illegal tackle by Fulcher as he goes right to the head of Anthony Carter.
He caught 4 against the Giants. He's caught 3 so far, and that's the end of the first quarter.
Honda dealer. And by Unisys, the combined power of Sperry and Burroughs. Unisys, the power of 2.
We're back at Riverfront Stadium in Cincinnati. This is Dick Stockton along with Dan Dierdorf in a wild first quarter with the Bengals leading the Vikings 21-10. And the Vikings threatening again, 1st and 10 at the Cincinnati 41. Wade Wilson swings it out to Darren Nelson. And Nelson gets to the 36-yard line. First quarter yardage, and there's a lot of it, and at this rate, it'll be almost 1,200 yards for a full game between the two teams, looking at the numbers.
Cincinnati would come in with about 600 and some yards total offense if they're able to keep this going. I think it's safe to say that at halftime, if the score is somewhere under 50 for both teams, I think we can say that the defensive coaches are going to dominate the halftime meetings. Neither team has played well defensively, open receivers all over the field, and both teams getting moved off the line of scrimmage.
Alfred Anderson for a couple, shy of a first down by about a yard and a half. Wilson so far on the day passing has completed 5 of 7 for 75 yards.
One of the things about the Vikings in this 3rd and 2 situation is that you can expect anything. If I was Dick LeBeau, the defensive coordinator for the Bengals, I would have no idea what to anticipate.
And Allen Rice, close. His second effort made it close. And the Vikings trying to jam it through at the 31-yard line. We may have a measurement. Let's see where they spot the ball.
The spot will be everything. It looked to me that he got the first down, but I can't see where they put the ball.
Well, they're going to measure it right now, and of course you'll see the result of that, and people are wondering, is Rice, let's see how they call it. Either got it by an inch or missed it by an inch, and he missed it by an inch, so it'll be 4th down. And Jerry Burns with 4th and inches.
Oh, there's no question. You have to go for it here.
Well, you're down 21-10. That's your first clue.
And when you're 6-5 and you're trying to make the playoffs, no time to be conservative.
And if you can't make an inch, well,
you don't deserve to win.
And that's just about what it is. Anderson has the first down and more, and he tries to twist his way for extra yardage. And as he gets to the 26-yard line, where the Vikings maintain possession 1st and 10. I was talking about the Vikings' tough losses and the effect that those 3 heartbreaking defeats in their last 4 games would have on a team. And Jerry Burns told us yesterday that he says, I feel that it's worst immediately after the game, but then it kind of wears off as the week goes on.
And he's right. It really does. I mean, it's the type of thing that you moan about on the plane, maybe on Monday and Tuesday. It's a real source of concern, but you'd be surprised how quickly pro athletes put it out of their mind. They know they've got a job to do coming up.
1st and 10 Vikings on the Bengal 26. Early second quarter in Cincinnati. Wilson, who's got good protection, just threw that away. It was intended for Leo Lewis. Wade Wilson, yesterday in our meeting, told us that I feel I can do anything Tommy Kramer can do. It just may take me a little longer to recognize certain things.
And that is for no other reason than the fact that Tommy Kramer has played every down. A real lack of game experience for Wade Wilson. But still, what did Sam Weich tell us? And it sounds trite to say, but he said this guy is by far and away the best backup quarterback in the league. He may be right.
He's looked pretty sharp so far, even though his team is down. Handoff to Anderson. Anderson gets inside the 20-yard line.
Misdirection all the way, that time by Minnesota. Looks like it's going to be a bootleg by Wilson. See how he starts? Anderson even started to the left, took 2 steps, and then after the Vikings had over-pursued, Alfred Anderson takes it back the other way. I am very impressed with the play selection by both the Vikings and the Bengals here. They have got both defensive teams back on their heels.
Anderson goes out, and Allen Rice comes in. Horton and Zander made the tackle. It'll be 3rd down and 2 on the 18. Mike Malarkey comes in as a second tight end as well.
The Bengals are really confused.
And Rice tripped up and stopped short of a first down by Barney Bussey, a rookie from South Carolina State who saved the first down on that play.
And I think a stroke of luck for the Bengals that Minnesota ran right that time, because on the other side of the field we had both Breeden and Billups interchanging positions. They were confused as to who they were covering, while the Vikings take a timeout to discuss what they're going to do here.
So Jerry Burns and the Vikings have taken 2 of their 3 timeouts early here in this first half. We have 11:15 to go. Decision time for the head coach. Then a yard, and they're going to go for the yardage on the Bengals 17, and they're going to bring in a lot of beef because David Huffman will be a 3rd tight end. He normally is a tackle or a guard. Mike Malarkey, the 2nd tight end, and Carl Hilton, a rookie from Houston, who's the number 3 tight end, all in there now.
The last 4th down play was Alfred Anderson off the right side.
4th and 1. Alan Rice is back there with Nelson, and it's Darren Nelson. First down for Nelson. His forward progress will take him to the 15, where Robert Jackson, the free safety, was there, and another first down for Minnesota. So the Vikings are perfect on 2 attempts on 4th down on this drive.
And what a risky play that time for Minnesota. On short yardage, it's really tough to ask your running back to go parallel to the line of scrimmage. That's what Darren Nelson is doing right there. Then he has to make an immediate 90-degree turn and get across the line of scrimmage. Any penetration up front at all, and that's a blown play. Give credit to the Viking offensive line. They allowed no Cincinnati penetration. Nelson was able to make his cut, and he got the first down.
1st and 10 on the 15, and Alfred Anderson gets close to the goal line. Stopped short of it at the 1-yard line. He did not get in.
I think the ground caused that fumble. They're not going to give it to Cincinnati. He hit the turf, and the ball popped out.
Quick opener for Alfred Anderson.
It really doesn't get much simpler than that. Just look at the straightaway blocking. Frumright took a fake from the center. Did you see Dennis Swilley and the way he kind of played off to one side? Frumright overreacted. That forced a big hole, and boy, we've seen some gaping holes created by both of these lines today.
Kurt Loudermilk. Real key block on that play. 1st and goal on the 1. And Wilson takes it himself. No signal yet from the official. And it appears that Wilson is just short, so it'll be 2nd and goal. Let's listen to the hitting going on between those lines at the goal line. That's what it sounds like. Only Dan knows what it feels like. This is the 14th play coming on this drive. And Wilson this time is in for the touchdown. And the Vikings and Jerry Burns are encouraged as they keep coming back. They've trailed all the way in this game, and they keep coming back, and it's now a 21-16 game. And Wilson with a score.
Who wins the battle up front? I think you see the black shirts being pushed back into their own end zone. Wade Wilson with a good leap. Got the job done up front by his own guys. An easy touchdown for Minnesota. You know, Dick, you and I saw Minnesota in their game against Washington. Same thing. They kept coming back. Down 14-0. They kept coming back. This is a good football team.
I don't think there's any question that the Vikings have come of age this year, whether they make the playoffs or not. Coleman will hold for Nelson. And Chuck Nelson's kick is good. And with 9 minutes and 29 seconds remaining in the first half, high-scoring affair, and the Bengals lead again cut to 4. These words so far, it's 21-17 in favor of the Bengals. Wade Wilson going over for a yard out, and Chuck Nelson getting set to kick off for the Vikings. And deep will be Jennings on the right, McGee on the left, and the last time, keep in mind, Tim McGee returned the kickoff 94 yards to set up the 3rd touchdown for Cincinnati.
Wise to kick away from McGee.
But they're going right to McGee at the 1. Unwise they are. So here's McGee to the 20. McGee to the 30, and he's down at the 32-yard line. And now they're going to huddle on the sideline, are the Bengals.
Looks like the no-huddle offense now for Cincinnati. Sam Weich comes in. He was telling us they can run every play in their offensive scheme from the line of scrimmage. The plays have names, and the players come up with the names of the plays themselves. They're all coded. Under center, Boomer Esiason will bark out the name of a play, and the player, what's really cute about that is that the players come up with their own individual name, something that they can remember.
1st and 10, Cincinnati on their 33-yard line. Brooks. Studwell is there. at the 36-yard line. Well, what kind of names do they come up with on this no-huddle situation?
Well, it's funny because one of their plays actually is called a boss, and that is a pretty standard terminology. It's one of the Vikings, by the way, is down on the field. But it's pretty standard terminology. Boss means back on safety. Scotty Studwell there. But the back on safety, they don't want to say that at the line of scrimmage because every team in the league knows what that means. So they said, all right, we need a name for boss. What do we use? They asked the players. They came up and says, well, let's use Bruce for Bruce Springsteen. So at the line of scrimmage, Bruce, that's boss. That's it.
And, you know, the players love to be involved like this as Studwell on his own power gets up. But the players really get involved. And, of course, there are a lot of people who criticize Sam White for overcoaching. They say that with the kind of offensive arsenal he has, he could score 40 points by playing it straight every game, but he doesn't think so.
Well, his response to that is, you know, I'm accused of having the greatest offensive team in the game, and I have all these weapons at my disposal. He says, well, tell me, why is it that in these last couple of years, I only have one legitimate all-pro football player, and that's Anthony Munoz, his left tackle. Granted, Collinsworth and McGee and Brown, these guys are all good football players, but I don't know that I'm as good as you guys think I am.
2nd down and 7 at the 36-yard line. Johnson, the lone running back. Esiason going in the air and going deep, overthrowing Brown, who is covered by both Harris and Isaac Holt. Holt did not start the game. There he is, number 30 for the Vikings. David Evans, the former USFL player, did. Holt came into the game with 7 interceptions, second in the NFC, but there was a method to the madness for Jerry Burns.
That's a statement to the rest of the defensive team that says we have a concept, and it is a team concept, and you cannot venture out. Isaac Holt has been burned by playing some of the wrong coverages, especially last week against the Giants where he gets beat by Bobby Johnson on that 4th and 17 play. That's the main reason why David Evans started today.
3rd and 7. Esiason on the rollout. Going for Brown, incomplete. He was covered on the play by Carl Lee. And Burns was kind of out front with us when he said that basically it's just shock value. He says there's no question that Holt is a better defender than Evans. I just want to shock him back to reality, but he'll be in there.
Well, and he's not the first coach that has used that type of ploy before. I think every coach has to do it probably a couple times a season to good football players. That time it happened to Isaac Holt.
Jeff Hayes, who's last in the AFC in kicking. Anthony Carter, who's a threat, is back on the 30-yard line. First punt of the game for Hayes. It's a good one. Carter will let it roll, and it takes a Cincinnati roll indeed inside the 15-yard line. So Jeff Hayes, the former Washington Redskin, does his job to the tune of 50 yards. And right now, while we have a moment, let's remind you that there's a Thanksgiving weekend of college football action on CBS Sports.
We'll start on Friday. That'll be an ACC matchup between the Terrapins of Maryland, the Virginia Cavaliers, and then that'll be at 2:30 Eastern. Then we move on to Saturday.
Yeah, Lou Holtz and the Fighting Irish of Notre Dame, and a close loss to LSU last night against the Trojans of USC. Quite a holiday weekend of college football action coming up on CBS Sports.
And, you know, Carter hurt his team that time by not fielding that football. He cost the Vikings 15 yards.
They start from the 14, 1st and 10. Darren Nelson cuts inside and gets nothing. Tim Crumrye, who had 10 tackles against Seattle last week, forced 1 fumble and recovered 1, and has done just about everything you'd want for a nose tackle.
I'm sorry, Dick. Tim Crumrye, I was going to say, maybe the most active defensive lineman in the game right now. That's superb production. There's not much else you can say about that by both offensive teams.
And you notice that last possession was the first one without a score so far in this game. 2nd and 9 at the 15. Wilson. Leo Lewis, the receiver, and Fulcher may have picked it off for the Bengals, and he has. David Fulcher with his 3rd interception of the season.
And he hurt himself when he landed. David Fulcher still on the ground. Looked like he jammed an arm or something when he hit the ground.
Leo Lewis was the intended receiver, and the pass simply came up short to him.
Leo Lewis was the intended receiver. Let's take a look at it as he goes one-on-one with Lewis Breeden. Working towards the outside. See Fulcher? He's going to move back when he sees the ball was thrown. But when Lewis tries to react back to the inside, boy, look how effective Breeden was in keeping Lewis away from the football. But boy, good smart play that time by David Fulcher. Reacted when he saw the ball thrown, did a 360, pivoted, got back in front, made the pick.
Coming off the field now is Fulcher, who was picked on the 3rd round. He was the 3rd man on the 3rd round, picked by the Cincinnati Bengals, and Weich told us yesterday that he's playing as if he is a first-round player out of Arizona State.
And we'll see the no huddle again. The Bengals on the sidelines. One of the things they love to run after a turnover is a play called Snake Eyes, which is a bootleg by Esiason. They figure that the defensive team, expecting something conventional, won't be prepared for a boot.
See what the Bengals do. That's the first turnover of the ball game, and they have the ball on the Minnesota 42, 1st and 10. Esiason pumps once, and down he goes. Mike Stensrud, who is no stranger to the Bengals, having played 8 years with the Houston Oilers and replacing Keith Millard on the Viking defensive front, and a loss of 4 on the play.
That time nobody opened downfield. Esiason went on the bootleg on the designed roll to the left-hand side as Chris Dolman down on the field for Minnesota.
So Studwell before was shaken up and came off on his own power, and now Dolman. Hopefully he'll be as lucky. This man has the best seat in the house every week, and looks like he's not interested. We got a good game going, buddy. Why don't you watch it?
Well, who's going to tell him to move?
By the way, Studwell has returned at middle linebacker for the Vikings. And Dolman going off the field.
And it's the no huddle again for Cincinnati as they start from their sidelines. You know, one thing that comes into play, you've got to be a well-conditioned offensive team to run the no huddle offense and to huddle on the sidelines as often as the Bengals do.
2nd down and 14 following the first sack of the ball game. James Brooks hit hard at the 46 by Jesse Solomon, so no gain on the play. It'll be 3rd down. So one of the things that impressed the Bengals looking at the Viking defense is that they have a tremendous pass rush without blitzing. You don't find that too often in the league today.
Well, and that's because of all the line stunning they do up front. They free up a lot of people. That may have been the first time today that we've seen 2 consecutive plays that didn't go anywhere offensively.
4 wide receivers in the game for the Bengals on 3rd and 14. Brown overloads the left side. Esiason down the middle to Kreider. Steve Kreider, the possession receiver, has a 1st down at the 26-yard line, a gain of 23.
The Vikings that time fell into a zone, but the zone was far too deep. When a team needs that much yardage for a 1st down, you've got to tighten your zone up. Kreider clearly had the 1st down by a good 4 or 5 yards, and still the majority of the Viking defensive backs were another 4 or 5 yards downfield. You just can't sag that deep.
1st and 10 for the Boomer on the 23 of Minnesota. 5:50 remaining in the 1st half. Bill Johnson busts a couple of defenders, and Bill Johnson pounding his way. John Harris making the tackle.
And again, it's the left side of the Bengal line that's dominating. Remington gets in, makes Studwell go the other way, but Kazurski and Munoz just wall their people. Munoz even comes off, gets a shot on Joey Browner. Boy, that's just dominating offensive line work by Cincinnati.
And another 1st down for the Bengals. At the 13-yard line, that's the time remaining in the 1st half. Bengals trying to capitalize on the first turnover of the game. Here's Johnson again. Tough to bring down and close to the goal line. Bill Johnson, averaging nearly 6 yards a carry. Gains 11 that time before John Harris tripped him up.
Well, you have to wonder if you and I were running the football, how far we would have gotten. Again, to the left side, it's just wide open, and Bill Johnson lowers his shoulder, almost got in the end zone. And here goes Cincinnati into their huge offensive formation. We'll see Munoz move over to left tight end.
It's 1st and goal on the 2. Play action pass. Holman, the tight end, can't hold on. He would have had 6. Carl Lee was defending.
Carl Lee, with his back to the football, made a play that he was beaten early as Rodney Holman was open, but then with the arm up in the air, that's not a face mask unless you're really waving the hands and get in there. That was a good, effective play that time.
2nd and goal on the 2. 4:18 on the clock. 21-17 Cincinnati. And this time it's Wilson who has already scored 2 touchdowns, but he goes nowhere. And it'll be 3rd and goal. Carl Lee coming up from the secondary.
One of the few times Cincinnati hasn't had success working to the left side. Let's take a look at the conclusion of this play. Just straight out of the I formation, but look at Scott Studwell, Walker Lee Ashley coming in from the inside. That was Carl Lee scissoring in from the outside. Looked like Minnesota played that play all the way. 3 guys in the offensive backfield.
3rd down. Wilson and Bill Johnson are back, and they swing it out to Johnson. Browner misses a tackle, and now it looks like Johnson did not get in, and it'll be 4th down. So Joey Browner slowed him up, and Carl Lee made the stop, and it'll be 4th down short of the goal line.
This guy isn't very conservative by nature. He doesn't want to kick it, and yet he is.
And the crowd naturally does not approve of it. You think it's interesting, a coach that tries all that razzle-dazzle that will do almost anything has a 4th and 1, knowing that if you don't make it, the Vikings have to go 99 yards, but he's going to play it safe on this occasion. So Breach will be in. Kreider is holding. This will be a 19-yard attempt. Breach is 13 for 24 in field goal attempts this year. And the kick is no good. So the decision to go safe backfires on Sam White. And the score remains 21-17 in an improbable event here at Riverfront Stadium as Breach misses a 19-yard field goal attempt.
Well, this time the coach went against the crowd, went ahead and kicked it, and look what he got in return. Breach just too much into the football. Doesn't even hit the upright. He just hooks it to the left-hand side. Frustration for the Bengals, but after Breach's missed field goal, they still lead by 4 over Minnesota.
And White's told us yesterday that he hasn't been entirely healthy this year.
He's got a back problem that's been bothering him most of the season. But still, I mean, that kick really surprised me. I'm not just saying that because he missed it. Sam normally more aggressive than that.
Wilson pumps on 1st and 10 at the 20, and his pass is complete to Leo Lewis to the 43-yard line, and a 1st down, 23 yards. So Lewis Billups, the rookie, covering the other Lewis, Leo.
Just single coverage, some stagger steps by Leo Lewis, but then look at him push off a little bit as he gets the right hand out on Lewis Billups and makes the move back to the inside. Lewis Breeden came in and ran the risk of getting called for a late hit, but Leo Lewis that time got away with a little shove to the inside. 1st and 10 at the 43. Just under 3 minutes remaining in the first half. Wilson with a low pass and a good catch that time by Mike Malarkey. His 8th reception of the year, 2 of them for touchdowns. We want to remind you that coming up next, one of the great matchups of the year in the NFL, the Dallas Cowboys and the Washington Redskins, and they'll be rocking at RFK Stadium as the Redskins try to gain revenge from the thrashing they took in Dallas earlier in the year. 2nd down and 3 at midfield for the Vikings, trailing 21-17. And it looked as if Joe Kelly had jumped off sides. Question is, was he drawn? There's no doubt that he was a couple of yards across the line of scrimmage when the ball was snapped.
Defense, interior lineman offside, 5-yard penalty, and a 1st down.
Kelly is #1 draft pick out of Washington, and the Bengals have relied on a lot of rookies in their defensive unit this year.
Those are the types of mistakes that you get out of rookies. Joe Kelly They're pleased with the type of linebacking play they've gotten from him so far this year.
1st and 10 at the 45 for the Vikings, and Boomer looking for his next opportunity. Wilson is going to go deep. Gustafson, who has come in the ball game, the intended receiver, but overthrown on the play. Phillips and Robert Jackson were both back there. It'll be 2nd and 10. 2:18 on the clock.
This is Anthony Carter, who is working the other side of the field. He makes his break to the sideline, sees no one around him. Sure, Anthony's wondering, why didn't I get the football? Look over here, Wade. But he's not as open as he thought he was. DBs break off after they see the pass thrown. Sometimes that's a receiver's not quite as open as he thinks he is.
2nd and 10 at the 45, and the handoff to Alfred Anderson. Anderson busts a couple of tackles and gets a 1st down for the Vikings to the Cincinnati 31 before Joe Kelly makes the stop. Good for 14 yards. And Alfred Anderson looks like quite the bull today in the backfield for Minnesota.
Great second effort by Anderson. Again, a counterplay, the delay, and wrapped up in the backfield. Emmanuel King had a hand on him, but then, boy, when the play looks like it's going to lose 5, then it ends up picking up yardage like that. That's excellent work by the running back that time, Alfred Anderson.
And he's the 2nd leading rusher coming in, has gained 46 yards today, and here is the 2-minute warning at Riverfront Stadium. And the Minnesota Vikings with a 1st and 10 on the Cincinnati 31, and keep in mind the Vikings have only 1 timeout remaining. They used 2 early. This is the current drive, and it all started after Breach missed a 19-yard field goal. Alan Rice has replaced Anderson. Wilson swings it out to Darren Nelson, and Nelson close to 1st down yardage. Ross Browner and Joe Kelly make the tackle, and is shy by about a yard, as you can see, as the clock continues to run. Vikings have not had the lead in this game. They fell behind 7-0. One time it was 14-3, then 21-10. But they have a chance to take the lead if they can score a touchdown here. 2nd down and 1, and Anderson is back in. Wilson completes his pass to Carter, who goes out of bounds, and a 1st down inside the 10. Lewis Billups covering on the play, and Carter with his 4th reception gets 13 more yards.
Boy, what a throw that time from Wade Wilson to Anthony Carter. I mean, that was just a straight line. Anthony works a precision route. The coverage actually that time by Billups was pretty good. But look at the plant, the throw, and just look at that. There's not an arc on that football at all. That's as good as a quarterback can throw a sideline pattern. It's tough to criticize Billups. He had good coverage on Anthony Carter, but man, what a throw.
1st and goal at the 9. Carter has caught 4 for 79. That's better than his effort against the Giants last week. Wilson getting pressure, and Ross Browner from behind gets it. Jim Scow and Browner combined for the 1st sack of the game by the Cincinnati defense.
Boy, and what a sack that was. The initial protection, very good. The Bengals only coming with 3 linemen. But then Wilson makes a break, and he broke the wrong direction. Scow kept him from getting to the outside and then coming from behind. Ross Browner cleaned up. Boy, Wilson that time really showed a lack of game experience by not getting rid of the football. You can't lose that much yardage when you're near the opponent's goal line.
A loss of 15, Dan, and it's 2nd and 25. So they push the Vikings well back, and Wilson trying to get a lot of it back to Leo Lewis, covered by Billups, incomplete, and now it's 3rd down. So unless they go for the downs, the Vikings' best opportunity may be for a 3-point attempt as Wade Wilson. Now, as you know, Jerry Burns designates the offense into the hands of Bob Schnelker and the defense to Floyd Peters, and makes the key decisions during the game. 3rd down and 25. 3rd and goal, really. Hassan Jones to the lower part of your screen. Three wide receivers. And a semi-draw play to Darren Nelson. And the Vikings getting close to field goal position here, and that's what they'll attempt. Robert Jackson and Emmanuel King make the stop. So it'll be 4th down, and Chuck Nelson will come in, and the clock continues to run.
Yeah, they'll let it run down because either make it or miss it. They're not going to give Cincinnati an opportunity to do much with it offensively. So they'll let it run down to 4 or 5 seconds.
You don't want to let it run down too much, because if there's a penalty on the offense, you may not have time to try that kick again. And they stop it at 4 seconds. The final timeout of the first half used by the Vikings. We'll be back. For the first points of the game for the Vikings, and now will attempt what appears to be a 35-yarder to try to bring the Vikings to within 1 point before the first half elapses.
And some people might have a tendency to say, what kind of a call was that on 3rd and goal from the 25 yards away? But look what it did. A 7-yard pickup by Anderson makes a 35-yard field goal on what would have been a 42-yarder if you had an incomplete pass.
4 seconds remain in the first half. And Nelson's kick is good. And the Minnesota Vikings still haven't taken the lead, but they haven't come this close so far as they trail the Cincinnati Bengals 21-20 as time runs out in the first half, with the Bengals leading the Vikings in a wide-open, high-scoring affair, 21-20. Coming up, the NFL Today. Herb and the group, and Brent with scores coming right up. Sam Weiss to go for the field goal when he was at the 1, and also, is there any defense in this game?
Well, to the second part, no, there is not. Sam and his decision, he's a very aggressive coach, and I have to be honest with you, that surprised me, and it's even made to look worse because the field goal was missed. Halftime, I think that's easy. Offensively, they said great job. Then both defensive coordinators took over, and all they did was yell. It was not a good first step for either team defensively.
But it's a close ball game, and we've had a lot of big plays and a lot of scoring, and of course, if you like that kind of football, and who doesn't, we've got perhaps more of the same coming up in the second half. So at halftime, the score is 21-20 in favor of Cincinnati over Minnesota, and CBS Sports coverage of NFL football will continue after this message. And Jim Breach of the Bengals will be kicking off in a 1-point game, and Rufus Bess is back for the Minnesota Vikings. It is a short kick, and Bess comes up to the 12-yard line to receive it. To the 25-30. Still in bounds, and he is now marked out of bounds after he crossed the 40-yard line. Eric Caddis, the rookie from Michigan, on the stop. Let's take a look at the halftime yardage, and there's been a lot of that.
It's going to the Vikings, although early it was all Cincinnati, and then the second quarter belonged to Minnesota. And I'll tell you who's really gone on vacation are both kickoff coverage teams for both the Bengals and the Vikings. These teams are getting to start with outstanding field position repeatedly.
And anytime you can score on 7 out of 10 possessions, as both teams have in this game, you do not have a defensive effort. Alan Rice for a couple off right tackle. Now, let's take a look at what this halftime score means. Well, the Bengals are 7-0 this year when they lead at halftime, and 13-1 over the last 2 years when they're in front. And that works for Cincinnati. 2nd down and 8 at the 43-yard line. Wade Wilson. In place of Tommy Kramer. Up the middle, and a good catch. And a penalty marker. That was Mike Malarkey who made the catch. And a penalty marker is down. A 10-yard pickup on that play.
That flag came in late from across the field. Anthony Carter giving us a preliminary signal rather.
Holding, left outside linebacker, defense, penalty refused, first down.
Sam Weiss.
That's the 4th defensive holding call of the day against Cincinnati. Even though that one is declined, that does not help your team. Wilson again with the good mobility, and that's an excellent catch by Malarkey. A poorly thrown pass back behind him. He's not down till he's touched. He scrambles forward for a couple of more, but that was good for a Viking first down. They didn't even need the penalty.
Wilson on 1st and 10 at the 47. And it's off the hands of Carter. Defending on the play was Ray Horton. And it'll be 2nd and 10. Carter caught 4 passes in the first half. You may be able to hear this pass.
It almost looked like it surprised Anthony Carter. Let's listen.
Yeah, you could hear it bounce off his shoulder. So it'll be 2nd and 10 at the 47-yard line. Wade Wilson. Last year, Wade Wilson, with his team trailing 23-0, engineered a tremendous rally with 8 minutes to go in the 4th quarter and beat the Eagles 28-23. So he's capable of doing it in a hurry. Wilson dumps it off. Wide open is Darren Nelson. Breeden, the only man there, and Darren Nelson gets hit hard but gets the first down for the Vikings at the 36-yard line, a gain of 11. It was Ray Horton and David Fulcher who combined to make the play.
What a good-looking play by Minnesota. Look at all the movement to the left. Both guards pull. There comes Wilson. When the Cincinnati defense has reacted all alone back to Nelson. And Nelson, a lot of small backs would have a tendency to make a break for the sidelines, to head for open territory. He took it right up into the heart of the defense, knew where the first down sticks were, and moved them. Good aggressive running that time by Darren Nelson.
That's the 20th first down of the ball game by the Vikings. Tremendous number. And here's Darren Nelson up the middle, and he's tackled by Joe Kelly, and he picked up about 8 yards on that play. So the Vikings not supposed to have the potent rushing attack, and they have easily exceeded their season's average. They gained 104 yards average rushing coming into this game, and they've already gained 118 on the ground against the Bengals.
And it helps to have backs like Nelson who aren't just stereotyped runners. He's a smaller guy at under 190 pounds. He's not afraid to run it between the tackles.
2nd and 2 at the 27 of the Bengals. And there's Darren Nelson again, and Nelson will have the first down inside the 25. Eddie Edwards on the stop. Darren Nelson, leading the Vikings in rushing and second in receiving, has taken a lot of the play away from James Brooks, the widely heralded running back of the Bengals, who scored the first touchdown.
Let's look at Reggie Williams on defense. He grabs a hold of Anthony Carter and says, hey, next time you're going to come down in the middle and try to block somebody, you best look for someone a little smaller than me.
Meanwhile, Nelson has gained 54 yards. 1st and 10 at the 24. And they swing it out to Rice. And Fulcher gives him a shot as the ball whistled by Allen. Incomplete. 2nd down. 11:36 remaining in the 3rd quarter. Wade Wilson making his 8th career start in place of Tommy Kramer, who this week was again rated the #1 passer in the NFC, but Wilson has done the job, and the Vikings trail the Bengals by 1, 21-20. Wade has completed 11 of 19 for 149 yards. He has thrown 1 interception. And there he goes, hit hard, and it was number 91, Carl Zander. Owen picked up the inside linebacking blitz of Zander and a loss of 9 on the play.
Zander delayed a little bit before he came on the blitz. We ought to see him cross. There he comes just from the inside. He made a loop to the outside and Wade.
Darren Nelson, leading the Vikings in rushing and second in receiving, has taken a lot of the play away from James Brooks, the widely heralded running back of the Bengals, who scored the first touchdown.
Let's look at Reggie Williams on defense. He grabs a hold of Anthony Carter and says, hey, next time you're going to come down in the middle and try to block somebody, you best look for someone a little smaller than me.
Meanwhile, Nelson has gained 54 yards. 1st and 10 at the 24. And they swing it out to Rice. And Fulcher gives him a shot as the ball whistled by Allen. Incomplete. 2nd down. 11:36 remaining in the 3rd quarter. Wade Wilson making his 8th career start in place of Tommy Kramer, who this week was again rated the #1 passer in the NFC, but Wilson has done the job, and the Vikings trail the Bengals by 1, 21-20. Wade has completed 11 of 19 for 149 yards. He has thrown 1 interception. And there he goes. Hit hard, and it was number 91, Carl Zander. No one picked up the inside linebacking blitz of Zander, and a loss of 9 on the play.
Zander delayed a little bit before he came on the blitz. We ought to see him cross. There he comes just from the inside. He made a loop to the outside, and Wade Wilson did not see him until it was helmet on shoulder pad.
Whose responsibility would that be when they have a game on like that?
Well, normally in a situation like that, because of the flow of the backs, I bet Zander was unaccounted for. He's called a hot linebacker. In reality, it's the quarterback's responsibility. He has to see him and get rid of the ball.
3rd and 19, back to the 33, and Wilson getting pressure again. And this pass is caught inside the 15-yard line by Hassan Jones. And all over him was Horton on the defense, and it's close to a first down. Let's see where they marked the ball. They needed 19 yards, and they came awfully close to getting all 19.
Bengal fans are going to say, wait a minute, these guys ended up outside the 15-yard line. But contact was made closer to the 14 than it was to the 15, and they'll have to stretch the chains. Another dazzling throw by Wade Wilson.
They're going to be shy by that much. And decision time for Burns. So far on 4th downs, the Vikings are 2 for 2. Now a field goal here, though, would give them the lead for the first time in the game.
Somehow I get the feeling they're going to try for the first down.
Maybe the Vikings' lucky day. Why not 3 for 3? There's Bob Schnelker on the right side of the picture.
On their 2 previous 4th downs, it was Alfred Anderson off right guard. Then remember the play where Darren Nelson came across the backfield and turned upfield for the first down.
They got Huffman, Malarkey, and Hilton bunched together. And Wilson tries to take it himself on a quarterback sneak. And this may call for another measurement. Ross Browner and Ron Simpkins came up strong.
Well, the spot is everything. It's awful tough to not make it on the quarterback sneak when you only have an inch or 2 to go.
Well, they've got to measure.
Oh, yeah, I mean, that's no gimme, and he may not have it. The Bengals seem to think he's not there.
Oh, you know that? He lost on the play. The Bengals seem to think that the Vikings came up short, and from the naked eye, it looks like he lost yardage on that play.
Unless the yard lines are off, he didn't get it.
You'll hear the crowd. So 2 coaches gambled. Burns going for it on 4th down and eschewing the field goal that would give him the lead. And in the first half, it was White who went for the field goal on 4th and 1 and missing the field goal. So each coach has gambled and lost, and it's still 21-20 Bengals, who have a 1st and 10 on their own 15.
I don't think Jerry Burns is pleased with the spot. But that's the risk you run, the quarterback sneak. I mean, if he'd have made it, it'd have been by an inch. He gambled and lost big.
1st and 10 on the 15. Brown in motion. Esiason dumps it off to Bill Johnson. And Johnson close to a first down and may have it beyond the 25. Carl Lee and David Howard on the tackle. Indeed, 11 yards and a first down.
Wade Wilson hearing from Jerry Burns. I don't know what good it's going to do. There's no way. You didn't get the spot you wanted, and I don't know that you even got the surge that you wanted. Jerry Burns complaining, but I don't know that he has a valid argument.
1st and 10 at the 26-yard line. 21-20, the Bengals lead. They've led all the way. First down yardage had come down, but still impressive. Bill Johnson powers his way to the 30-yard line. Browns. In the AFC Central, it's 7-4. And right now, the Browns, after trailing early, have taken the lead over the Steelers 21-14. These teams will still play later on in the year, and we'll show you what the schedules look like later. Meanwhile, the Vikings are one of several clubs at 6-5 who have a shot at perhaps the last wild card berth, because you figure the loser of the Giants and Redskins will certainly get one.
Yeah, one of those is in for sure.
2nd and 6 at the 30, with 9.5 remaining in the third. Esiason on his way down, completes it to Collinsworth. And Collinsworth is wrestled down at the 42. The crowd is yelling for a face mask. And they have to separate some of the athletes out there. After Collinsworth picks up 12, Isaac Holt was the man on the stop. A neck tackle by Holt.
We're going to have a huddle on the sidelines. The flag came down very quickly. This could be just about anything.
Or at least they're friends, those four.
Notice body contact is very important among officials. They always put their arms around each other.
If they didn't like each other, they wouldn't be talking as friendly as they are. Collinsworth was not pleased, whatever they call, with the play by Holt.
Let's take a look at the conclusion of the play. There's the tackle by Isaac Holt as he has Collinsworth right underneath the chin. He did not strike the head, but he definitely hit around the neck area.
I didn't see that flag when it was thrown immediately.
Illegal use of the hands, number 81 offense, 10-yard penalty.
Isn't that something? Everyone thinks that there's a face mask against the Vikings. Instead, the penalty is against Eddie Brown of the Cincinnati Bengals.
Well, when that flag came in so early, you had an inkling that maybe it wasn't the tackle itself that brought the flag, but Eddie Brown, who was trying to block for Collinsworth, illegal use of the hands, and certainly nobody here in Riverfront Stadium buys that, least of all Chris Collinsworth.
Second down and 5 at the 31 for the Bengals, and they'll send out Kreider and Collinsworth to the top of your screen, Eddie Brown at the bottom. And the handoff is to Brooks. And Brooks can't get underway. And basically, they've kept him under wraps today. Doug Martin on the tackle. Brooks coming into the game, second in rushing in the AFC. He's gained 21 yards in 5 carries, which is below his season's average of over 5 yards per carry.
That's what's remarkable about James Brooks is the fact that he's averaging 5.2 yards per carry. That's an average that's very, very hard to sustain over the course of an NFL season.
Dick Stockton and Dan Dierdorf, Riverfront Stadium, 21-20 the score. Brooks did score the first touchdown. It was 21-10 after 1 quarter. And flags, I've never seen so many yellow flags thrown at one time.
Well, that time it was the left side of the Bengal offensive line.
Ball start, 78 offense, 5-yard penalty, still third down.
Anthony Munoz. There's Big Munoz at 278, a huge offensive line. They lead, of course, they're one of the top rushing teams, but they're a great pass blocking unit as well.
And Anthony Munoz, a contender for the best offensive tackle in the game of football. Year in and year out, a consensus All-Pro. Just a dynamite football player.
Max Montoya, the right guard, another one who has gained honors up front. Third down and 7 at the 29. Esiason going for Kreider this time and knocked away by Willie Teal. And the Boomer in his 3rd year. Of course, people talked about a feud with Sam White. And people around the country think that the two really don't get along. That's not the case, is it?
Well, certainly not according to Sam White, who said that that is all the fabrication of a columnist here in Cincinnati who just loves controversy. He started this thing between Esiason and White, and Sam steadfastly denies it. He said, hey, Boomer is my guy. I like the guy, and really that's reciprocated both ways. He pulled Boomer from a game one time, and Boomer got a little upset about it, and I would too. That's being a competitor.
There's Carter, who is deep for the Vikings, and Hayes to kick it. Good high kick. And Carter will call for the fair catch in good field position. In fact, White's told us, getting back to the problems with Esiason, that they've never had a cross word between the two. And neither have we, Dan.
Watch close.
Output has slowed somewhat. 7:35 remaining, and the Bengals lead 21-20. Again, Sam Weiss talking to his offensive unit, letting the defense do their job. 1st and 10 at the 34 for the Vikings, who have scored 10 points in each of the first 2 quarters. Wilson gets hit hard, and tremendous rush by Carl Zander, and no chance for Darren Nelson downfield.
Well, that's the 2nd time now in a row that Wade Wilson has been dumped, and dumped hard, by Zander. The last time was for a sack. He's going to come in from the left side. Just as Wilson gets rid of the ball, Zander forces the bad throw. He got there that 1/10 of a second early, forcing the ball to come loose, come free, and a poorly aimed pass.
Meanwhile, the Steelers have come back to tie the Browns, 21-all in the 3rd quarter. Browns and Bengals tied in the AFC Central for the lead. 2nd and 10 here for the Vikings on their own 34. Darren Nelson can't see daylight and gets just 1 yard on the play. That'll make it 3rd and 9. The Browns and the Bengals still have a date on December the 14th here at Riverfront Stadium. And Cincinnati already owns a victory over Cleveland.
Their only victory over a team with a winning record. Of their 7 wins, only the Browns have a winning record. They're identical at 7-4.
And for the Vikings, this may be their toughest battle the rest of the way. 3rd and 9 on the 35. Wilson gets good protection, but Carter is covered well and clobbered over the middle by 2, 3, 4 Bengals, and it's 4th down, and the crowd cheers the defense.
And I'll tell you a guy that's doing some hitting. It's number 33, David Fulcher. Look at him come in. He gets his own man, Lewis Breed, but Anthony Carter as well. And David Fulcher in the secondary for Cincinnati, playing an excellent football game.
And this will be the first punt of the afternoon for Greg Coleman. Ray Horton goes back at safety. Coleman is 3rd in the NFC. And Horton on the run at the 32-yard line. Lost his footing, recovers, and Horton gets to midfield. And it was Coleman who made the tackle. An 18-yard return by Ray Horton following a 33-yard kick by Coleman, and the Bengals with good field position off of this.
And the reason it was a low line drive kick, look how long it is before a Viking rather, even comes into view. Ray Horton took the low kick from Coleman, and again, these offensive teams start with good field position.
Receiver for the Bengals, but he's in his 1st year of law school and is going to law school during the year 3 days a week. And there they come after huddling on the sideline, the no-huddle offense. 1st and 10 midfield for the Bengals, leading the Vikings 21-20. James Brooks with a 45 and fumbles it out of bounds. And of course, it'll go back to the point that he fumbled the ball, which is at the 45 of Minnesota. Solomon made the hit.
Got a lot of little bean bags down on the field. The officials threw the bean bags to the spot where Brooks fumbles the football. He gets hit right there. There it goes forward. And even though the football went beyond the 1st down chains, it goes back to where he let loose of the football. They'll have 4 yards to go to get a 1st down.
They mark it at the 43-yard line, so that's 7 yards on that carry. 2nd and 3. And they go to Brooks again. Outside. Brooks will have the 1st down inside the 40. And this time it was Chris Martin and Isaac Holt on the tackle for the Vikings. Brooks spent his first 3 years with the San Diego Chargers, and this is his 3rd year with the Bengals. And a lot of people think that he's quicker than Marcus Allen. And when you swing the ball out of the backfield to him, well, you could look for a touchdown any time. First and 10 Bengals on the Viking 37. On the draw, Bill Johnson. To the 33, Tim Newton. There for Minnesota.
If you're wondering why Bill Johnson is in the ball game, it's because Larry Kinnebrew, normally the starting fullback, was benched today. Sam White's upset with Kinnebrew, is being overweight, fumbling the football away last week. And Larry Kinnebrew riding the pines today as Anthony Munoz and his left leg show us it's a tough game.
2nd and 5 at the 32. Johnson, before he gets underway, is tackled at the 30-yard line. There's the time remaining in the third quarter, 21-20. It was 21-10 Cincinnati after one quarter, and the Vikings outscored the Bengals 10-0 in the second, and we have not had any scoring so far here in the third. Bill Johnson, by the way, has averaged nearly 7 yards a carry in place of Kinnebrew. 3rd and 3. Esiason. And he must have been going for Collinsworth. Pass was over his shoulder and a mix-up on that route. Incomplete, 4th down.
Well, the Vikings came with a blitz. You see Joey Browner, number 47. When the blitz comes in, Esiason is expecting a change in pass routes by his wide receivers. That time he delivered the football. The receivers didn't realize it was a blitz, and they ran the wrong pass routes.
Jim Breach is in to try a 49-yard field goal. He's missed one from 19 yards. Holding will be Kreider. The long, as you saw, had been from 51. And this kick is way off the mark to the left. And Breach is 0 for 2, and we'll hear the boos. It'll be Viking ball when we come back to Riverfront. Seems better than that Tiger thinks it is.
Everyone at Riverfront here in a fever pitch this afternoon.
Almost.
That's right, the camera's on you. Look at it.
Vikings feel they've got to be due to win a close game. They've lost 3 by 3 points or less and another by 6 in overtime. Leading or trailing by 1 right here. 1st and 10 on the 30-yard line. Wade Wilson on a rollout goes cross field to Jordan. And the tight end gets away from 1-2 tacklers and penalty markers thrown. As Jordan gets to the 42-yard line, a gain of 11. Tim Crumry on the tackle. But a flag was thrown. So Cincinnati's defense held after the Bengals had the ball at midfield.
Illegal use of the hands, 24 defense, a shot to the face, 5-yard penalty, first
Lewis
down.
Billups.
And he's doing battle with Anthony Carter. There it is. See the shot? Oh, a left, a right, a left.
Mike Tyson.
Yeah, right into the head of Anthony Carter, who retaliates with a little over-the-shoulder kick. But Lewis Billups, rather, gets caught. Illegal use of the hands and 3 good shots to the head. Cincinnati today defensively really hurting themselves with a lot of unneeded penalties.
Alfred Anderson and Darren Nelson in the backfield. Play action, 1st and 10 at the 48. Complete to Jordan out of bounds at midfield. Picked up only 2 yards. David Fulcher on the tackle. Clock running. We have 3 minutes and 22 seconds remaining in the third quarter. Anthony Munoz waiting for his turn again. No scoring in this third quarter, 21-20 Cincinnati. Bengals also looking at the scoreboard, at least the fans are, where Cleveland and Pittsburgh were tied the last time we checked. Alan Rice comes in for Anderson. Wilson chased by Emmanuel King, and his pass intended for Carter, incomplete.
Boy, that was a lucky break. The blitz was on, and Wilson gets out, and the Cincinnati defender is laying on the ground. Lewis Breeden fell. There's no way that ball could get to Anthony Carter, and it's just, that could have been a big play, Minnesota.
He seemed to have his feet in bounds if he had held on.
Yeah, if he could have held on to it, it probably would have been very close, though, very close.
3rd and 8, midfield. to Rice, and a great tackle by Ray Horton. He had won the job at right cornerback, but lost it to Lewis Phillips, the rookie. But he's playing a strong game today in the nickel package.
Offensively, Minnesota got what they wanted. A running back singled up on a DB, but a fine open field tackle that time by Horton.
And Greg Coleman will punt for the second time. He did not get off a good one the first time, and Horton, who made the first down saving tackle, is back for Cincinnati. Better kick this time for Coleman, but it takes the Cincinnati bounce and goes out of bounds. And they'll mark it at the 27 with 2:05 remaining in the third quarter. And division championships dancing in their heads are battling it out here at Riverfront Stadium, a sellout crowd. That's the time remaining in the third quarter. We have not had any scoring here in the third, and the Bengals cling precariously 21-20. With 2:05 to go, they have a 1st and 10 on their own 27-yard line. Boomer Esiason completes to Collinsworth, and a 1st down. And Carl Lee knocks him out of bounds. Esiason, who had his biggest day last week against Seattle, completing 22 of 33 for 335 yards.
And I think we saw Boomer that time look over to Sam White on the sidelines and say, "I've got the play. I'll call it myself." And that's what he's doing. This time Cincinnati not using the no-huddle offense. That time, by the way, it had to be a blown coverage for Minnesota. Collinsworth didn't have a Viking within 5 yards of him.
1st and 10 at the 41. Esiason completes this time to Eddie Brown, who gets by a defender. Into Viking territory, another 1st down and out of bounds. John Harris made the play, and it was Isaac Holt who missed him.
Isaac Holt, the normal starter at left cornerback, this time comes up and is going to attempt to make the play, but watch how he moves right by. Way too high, just a fake, and moved back to the inside by Eddie Brown. And now it's Cincinnati who moves into Minnesota territory.
That was a gain of 16 yards. Brown has caught 2 passes for 70. Don't forget, he had a big 54-yarder in the first quarter. This time it's Brooks up the middle. And James Brooks inside the 40-yard line to the 38.5. With 1:40 remaining in the period. David Howard and Doug Martin on the tackle for the Vikings, who are playing without Keith Millard, who not only leads the Vikings in quarterback sacks with 8.5, but has been an inspirational figure on the whole defensive unit this year.
He's also been their signal caller among the front four. His team stunts, moves around so much, they miss him in that capacity as well.
2nd and 5. Johnson. And Johnson, tough to bring down, will have another Cincinnati 1st down. At the 27, 12-yard gain. Joey Browner and John Harris on the stop as the Browns have regained the lead over the Steelers, 28-21. And limping is Joe Walter, the right tackle for the Bengals.
Joe Walter, watch him on the left side of our screen. He ought to come into the picture. A player is going to fall. He screens off for Johnson, but right there into the back of his knee. Scott Studwell came falling in. Joe Walter has to come out of the game, but a huge hole up the middle for the Bengals.
1st and 10 now for the Bengals on the Viking 27. Half a minute to go in the third. Esiason, one pump, completes it to Brown. And he's dropped right there at the 20-yard line. And a gain of 7 right there. Chris Dolman and Jesse Solomon on the tackle.
Watch the pass protection by the Bengal offensive line. Let's see how many of the Viking linemen are standing up. 1 down, 2 down, 3 down. That's pretty good pass protection when you put them all on the ground like that.
And there's the gun. And that's the end of the third quarter with the score. The Bengals 21 and the Vikings 20 will return to Riverfront Stadium in Cincinnati after these messages from your local station. Quarter, Dick Stockton and Dan Dierdorf. It'll be 2nd down and 4 at the 19-yard line for the Bengals, who lead 21-20 over the Vikings. Johnson, who has gained 70 yards, is about 2 yards short on that play. Here's the way the scoring has gone. Most of the touchdowns have come on the ground. Stanley Wilson has scored twice for Cincinnati. Darren Nelson has a touchdown on the ground. Wade Wilson in a quarterback sneak. Chuck Nelson has 2 field goals. The only passing score was Esiason to James Brooks, the first score of the ball game, and a lot of yardage chalked up so far today. 3rd down and a long one for the Bengals. And Johnson, he may have been stopped short. Mike Stensrud and Walker Lee Ashley both came up strong, and Brian Blados, who came in for the injured Joe Walter at right tackle. Let's see where they spot the ball. It's close.
Here comes John Madden's left foot, right foot theory.
Right foot. They're going to measure.
Jerry Burns all the way out onto the field, wanting to take a close look at this spot. Remember, he didn't like the one that Wade Wilson got on the quarterback sneak.
Bill Johnson looked shaken up for the moment, and he appears to be all right as he's trying to shake off the cobwebs. They're short of the first down by inches. So once again, a decision for Sam White. Breach has not done it for him so far today. And they're going to go for the yardage.
And in comes Larry Kinnebrew. Those aren't boos that you hear from the crowd. Those are brews for Larry Kinnebrew.
What does he weigh now?
Well, it's somewhere between 260 and 270.
Kinnebrew has scored 5 touchdowns rushing. He's a big tank, and he's in there on 4th and less than 1.
And we're going to get a false start.
Penalty marker down. They have the yardage, did Kinnebrew, for the first down, but there's a flag.
I think, Dick, this may go against Cincinnati. One of the Viking defensive linemen flinched.
75 offense, false start.
That's Bruce Reimers, the left guard, and so as a result, Sam White is going to have to go with Jim Breach anyway, and Breach has missed field goals from 19 and 49 yards.
What a smart play by the Viking defense. One of their defensive linemen flinched like he was going on the snap of the football, and that forced Reimers to go ahead and move early. Boy, that's a good, smart play defensively.
That Floyd Peters is a cunning coach, isn't he? So Breach, following the 10th penalty of the game by the Bengals, will try a 40-yarder. He's 0 for 2 today. Ryder is holding. And this kick is long enough, and this kick is good. Jim Breach with a 40-yard field goal makes it 24-20 in favor of Cincinnati. That 40-yarder makes it 24-20 in favor of Cincinnati, and that means that the Vikings need a touchdown to take the lead. Before, they needed a field goal to do so, and that's the time remaining. A lot left in the 4th quarter as Rufus Best goes back for the Vikings. Best coming on over to the 5-yard line. To the 20. Best brings it out beyond the 35-yard line, and that's where the Vikings and Wade Wilson will start, trailing by 4. Once again, what a Thanksgiving weekend we have for you. Atlantic Coast Conference and then one of the great independents, huh?
Yeah, we start this on Friday afternoon. The Terrapins of Maryland go against Virginia. That'll start at 2:30 Eastern time, and then we continue on Saturday with our coverage.
Lou Holtz, Notre Dame, and they have played a very tough schedule, and they have threatened a lot of clubs this year, haven't they?
They certainly have, and that heartbreaking loss to Michigan early, they're going against the University of Southern California.
1st and 10 for the Vikings on the 36, trailing 24-20. Wilson. Incomplete to Carter, the intended receiver, and a play like that earlier in the game netted the Vikings 34 yards.
That time on the strict timing pattern, the quick slant to the inside, the ball thrown way behind AC, Anthony Carter.
Well, the two teams scored 38 points in the first 21 minutes and only 6 points since, so things have settled down considerably. 2nd and 10. Wilson, incomplete. Anderson, the intended receiver, and Eddie Edwards. And company with a good pass rush.
Cincinnati loves to blitz on 2nd down. That time they were effective. The pass stunt inside. The blitz forced Wade Wilson to have to throw the ball before his receiver made a break. Good pressure. Good upfield rush by all the Bengal defensive linemen that time.
3rd down and 10. Hassan Jones comes in as the 3rd wide receiver. He's to the top of your picture. The blitz is on, and Wilson goes down. Eddie Edwards. He scored his first NFL touchdown in his 10-year career last week.
Watch Eddie Edwards going to come. He's going to loop. He's going to come up the middle. It's going to come from the outside. Let's take an eye on it right here. See Eddie Edwards start. Here he comes on the loop. Crumrye moves to the outside. In he comes. No way the Vikings were prepared for that stunt. Eddie Edwards comes up with the big play after a big play in a big game last week, doing it 2 weeks in a row.
3rd sack by the Bengals. They had 5 last week as Greg Coleman punts. Horton backpedals to the 25. And he turns the corner on the Vikings. And a good return, and a penalty marker has been tossed at the 40. Scott Studwell made the tackle on Horton, but a flag.
And these two coverage teams haven't covered anything yet. Every time one of the return teams gets a chance, they seem to make a big play. Although this one, it appears, will probably be brought back.
During your run back, number 26, illegal use of the hands, a shot to the face, 10-yard penalty, 1st down.
Bobby Kemp, the guilty party, so Horton's work to no avail. They'll spot it at the 30 when we come back to Riverfront Stadium after this. There may be a change in that last penalty. One set of markers has the Bengals starting on their own 30. Another one has them in Minnesota territory. Gene Barth will have to sort it out, and you're going to hear it from him.
Right? And it's going to go against Minnesota. You see the ball hitting upfield.
Originally, it was against Cincinnati. Now it's against Minnesota.
The foul was reported incorrectly. The foul was on the kicking team. That's a 5-yard penalty tacked on from the end of the run.
Well, the crowd loves that reversal. What do they say? An umpire, an official never changes his call. And, of course, they didn't because of any argument, but they changed that one. Minnesota has played practically a penalty-free game, certainly since the beginning.
And I'm sure they consulted with the replay official to find out exactly where they ought to spot the football. That is one good example of where the replay comes in handy.
There they are. The Steelers and the Browns are tied up again in Cleveland. And now the Bengals have the ball in Viking territory at the 47. Eddie Brown gets by 1, 2, and Eddie Brown inside the 40 and tackled at the 39-yard line by David Howard with some nifty footwork and a gain of 14 yards.
Well, number 74, Mike Stenserud, had the distinction of missing Eddie Brown twice. Stenserud to the right of your screen works upfield. He's got Brown wrapped up. Now he's going to get back up and miss him again right there. Eddie Brown with some nifty running takes it all the way back across field. That's kind of a mismatch. Stenserud at 300 pounds having to chase Eddie Brown. He says, man, oh man, I'm going to have to lose some weight if I'm going to have to do that on a daily basis.
And Boomer Esiason threw a block in all that, too. Stanley Wilson is the lone setback. 1st and 10 Bengals at the Viking 33. The Boomer rolling out and completing to Eric Caddis, the second tight end who caught his first NFL touchdown. He's a rookie from Michigan. John Harris knocks him out of bounds. And ball is spotted at the 30.
Caddison, interesting stories from the Cincinnati area. Went to the University of Michigan and then drafted by the Bengals. Pretty tough to openly gloat about Michigan's win yesterday here in Cincinnati.
And you couldn't either.
No, I'm maintaining a very low profile.
And now shaken up Mike Stensrud. Don't forget he's playing in place of Millard. And now the Bengals go over to the sideline as they do to talk things over with Sam Weich there.
Minnesota has to be hurting now in the defensive line. Mark Mullaney was banged up a little bit in the first half. They're going to be short of bodies.
Neil Elshire has been in there. He, of course, has been the fill-in just about every defensive line position. Tim Newton is there. Doug Martin, who told us yesterday that he's going to have to shoulder more of the burden in the pass rushing department. But so far today, the Vikings have just one sack of Esiason, and that by Stensrud. It'll be 2nd and 7 at the 30-yard line. Elshire is at right tackle. Esiason completes it to Eddie Brown. Willie Teal gives chase, and Tim McGee caused that tackle to be made. What was that all about?
Well, all he's trying to do is block for his own guy.
He blocked too much.
Oh, that's good hustle by Tim McGee. The design rollout. Esiason moves so well. Look, no penetration on the line. Just a simple flick back across the field. Now from the right of your screen will be McGee. He's going to try to make the block on Teal. He hits Teal so hard, though, that Teal knocks down Eddie Brown. But that's great hustle by Tim McGee.
And it was Willie Teal who was shaken up. He was on injured reserve first 5 games because of a knee injury, and was the starter all of last year at right cornerback.
That was a good, clean block by McGee. He came in high. He didn't try to hit Teal down low. So good effort that time by Tim McGee.
Well, tonight on CBS, if your car suddenly goes out of control, chances are something's wrong with it. Not so, says one manufacturer. It's not the car, it's you. Well, 60 Minutes examines that story. Then it's Angela Lansbury in Murder, She Wrote, followed by the CBS movie Women of Valor, starring Christy McNichol and Susan Sarandon. It's all tonight on CBS. Meanwhile, Eddie Brown with his 4th reception of the game as they tend to Willie Teal. And certainly, Dan, even though we haven't had a lot of scoring in the second half, the Bengals have had good field position. One time they started midfield and they've been knocking on the door and have been only able to come up with 3 points. And so the Viking defense has done a real good job.
Yes, they have. And I think you have to say the same for Cincinnati's defense because, you know, the field position for both of these teams has been excellent. That's due mostly to the fact the coverage on both sides of the football has been absolutely terrible, whether it be kickoffs or punts. Both teams have taken the day off in that respect.
There's the time. A lot of it remaining. 4th quarter, 1st and 10 at the 21. Eddie Brown on a reverse, and it's James Brooks, and a big loss on the play back to the 31, and it was Doug Martin who made the play. Doug Martin, who had his best day against the Giants last week.
Sometimes you can be too cute. And right now, offensively, Cincinnati is maybe getting very close to that stage.
Loss of 11 on the play. So the cries of those who think that Sam Weich gets a little too fancy too often, they're the ones who are heard right now.
And they're saying it very, very loudly.
2nd and 21. Back to the 32 after the 11-yard loss. Esiason going deep for Kreider. Incomplete. Double covered on the play, Rufus Bess and Joey Browner.
They were hoping for a flag to be dropped back in the end zone as there was some mild contact going to the football between Kreider and Bess, but no flag was thrown, both going for the football. No flag should have been thrown.
It is 3rd down now and 21. So you're looking if The Bengals don't get a first down and go to the air on this play. On another long attempt by Breach.
Maybe a triple reverse pass.
Why not? The only thing we haven't seen. Rolling to his right is the left-hander Esiason, and he's decked from behind by Chris Dolman. And the second sack of the game by the Vikings. And it's Dolman this time. And it'll be 4th down. And they're going to bring in Jim Breach to try to stretch the Bengal lead to 7. Breach missed 2 field goals earlier before connecting on a 40-yarder to make it 24-20, and this will be a long one. Kreider will hold, and it'll be a 50-yard attempt. The longest this year for Breach has been 51. And it's a fake. Kreider being rushed. Gets rid of the ball and is picked off by Isaac Holt. And Holt is chased out of bounds by Emmanuel King. And the crowd disappointed. Now, was this a design fake or was it a bad snap? Let's see if we can decipher it.
Well, the snap is high and up over Kreider's shoulder. He bobbles the football a bit. Now, I'm not sure if that was a design play or not. Somehow I get the feeling because of the snap. Let's see if anybody went out. No, that's a play.
Yeah.
That's supposed to be a field goal all the way because of the high snap. Kreider came out and tried to throw it.
Chris Dolman penetrated nicely, and Holt with his 8th interception of the year. 1st and 10 Vikings on their 33, and here's Darren Nelson giving ground and losing ground. Back to the 29. Reggie Williams. Time remaining, 8 minutes and 34 seconds. And a 4-point Bengal lead, 24-20. And with the Browns leading the Steelers, the Bengals need a win to stay in step with the Browns for the lead in the AFC Central. And of course, you all know about the Vikings in a big jumble for one of the 2 wild card berths. 2nd and 13. Wilson up the middle and caught by Steve Jordan, and a clutch catch. And now they rule, let's see, incomplete. That's the call. Robert Jackson defending.
Let's look at this. You're a Cincinnati defender. There's Steve Jordan, makes the break. Boy, he comes in. No way did he have the football. He's fighting it out with Robert Jackson, and Jackson had the better of the position for the football.
3rd down and 13. 4 wide receivers. Make it 3. Wilson going for Hassan Jones. And it's incomplete. Lewis Phillips with him step for step. And it's 4th down.
A good throw by Wilson that time. Even if it's intercepted, it's as good as a punt. But the coverage by Phillips right with Hassan Jones. Just can't play it much better than that if you're a cornerback.
So the Vikings, who scored on 4 of 5 possessions in the first half, have not scored on their 4, now 5 possessions in the second half. Ray Horton goes back as Coleman gets set to kick for the Vikings. And this one will go out of bounds at about the 35-yard line with 7:46 to go. A 35-yard kick by Coleman throughout, but this could be an important possession for the Bengals.
Well, up by 4 points, they have an excellent opportunity to, you hate to say put it out of reach, but a good 4, 5, even 6-minute drive that gets some points out of it. They put Minnesota in a very awkward position.
A touchdown now would give them an 11-point lead and forcing the Vikings to get 2 scores, and the Vikings haven't shown any inclination to do anything offensive.
Somehow, though, I don't think Cincinnati is going to be too fancy this offensive go-around. You know, the reverses and everything have not exactly received crowd approval. This may be a good old-fashioned conservative slamming in there. Remember early in this ball game how much success Cincinnati has had running the football off the left side of their offensive line. This would be the perfect opportunity for a little power football, Dick.
Do you think that Sam's going to play it that way?
Well, you know, I don't want to say if he's smart, he will. But when I've got guys like Kozerski and Munoz and the power type of running attack he has, I'd go to it right now. Burn up some first downs, use up some clock. You've got the lead. Play like it.
Here's Ken Anderson, by the way, right next to Sam White. 1st and 10 on the Bengal 35 with 7:46 to go. And there's Stanley Wilson changing direction. And Wilson may have a first down at the 46. Tim Newton made the stop. Help from Joey Browner. It is a Cincinnati first down.
Well, it wasn't pretty, but it was effective. Doug Martin, look how he gets Munoz back upfield. We've got to see the break all the way to the inside by Stanley Wilson, who showed some alert, instinctive running by taking it back across. Have to wonder where the Vikings were in their pursuit that time to allow him to do it.
1st and 10 at the 46. Stanley Wilson has 2 touchdowns today. Esiason. And it's picked off by Joey Browner. And he goes out of bounds. So Browner, with the 2nd interception of the game for the Vikings, is 4th of the year. And Minnesota takes over.
Well, Boomer's a lot more effective going to his left, and that's what he's doing right here. He has a clear line of vision, but for some reason he doesn't see Joey Browner underneath. He's working downfield to Collinsworth, and Joey Browner, a good 10 yards in front of the receiver, makes a fine play getting up in the air to get it, but you have to figure Esiason never saw him.
Well, the Browners, the brothers with a reunion today, are figuring in turnovers. Ross has a sack for Cincinnati, and Joey has an interception for the Vikings. 1st and 10 on the Bengal 43. And Alfred Anderson doesn't get much. And Cincinnati's defense against the run, even though the Vikings picked up a lot early, was good. That was Carl Zander in on the play.
A run blitz by the Bengals that time, shot both inside linebackers, and there was no line of scrimmage for the Vikings. They got moved back a couple yards.
2nd and long at the 42. This is the first time that the Vikings have started in Cincinnati territory today. Wilson, and it's deflected by Carl Zander. Zander and Joe Kelly, the 2 inside linebackers, each have an interception this year.
Wilson's going to roll to his left and then try to come back across the field. See number 91. He's going to read the throw back the other way. Good mobility, but boy, not such good hands. That was a pass that Zander should have intercepted.
It'll be 3rd down and 9. Hassan Jones and Leo Lewis out to the left. And it's Anthony Carter to the bottom of your screen. Wilson 0 for 5 in the 4th quarter. 0 for 6. Intended for Lewis. And it's 4th down. Well, a year ago against the Eagles, it was Wade Wilson who engineered a dramatic rally with his team down 23-0 and 8 minutes remaining in the 4th quarter. He engineered a Viking comeback and win, but he has grown cold here in the final quarter, and with 4th down, Coleman is in to kick it away. Ray Horton goes deep.
There will always be turnovers. When there is one, you ask your defense to stiffen. An excellent job that time by Cincinnati.
Horton is going to let it bounce, and it goes into the end zone for a touchback. A 42-yard kick, and Esiason talking things over with White. And with 5:55 to go, Cincinnati with a 4-point lead in the ball. And here's what's happening in Cleveland, where the Browns and the Steelers are all tied at 28 in the 4th quarter. Coming into today, the Bengals and the Browns were tied for first at 7-4. This was the way it looked at the beginning of the day, and keep in mind that the Browns and Bengals still have a meeting here in Cincinnati on December 14th. 1st and 10 at the 20. And it's Stanley Wilson. And it takes a bunch of people, including David Howard, to bring him down. Shy of the 30 and close to a first down, a gain of 9.
And that's the kind of play to the left side that I was talking about. Another good effort that time by Munoz, Kozerski, Remington at center, Montoya. These guys are really doing a job, and that's the kind of power football I think that Sam Wyche is going to go to right now. If he doesn't, after the last throw by Esiason, I don't know what's going on, but I'd keep that baby on the ground the way these guys can block.
2nd down and 1. Brooks will have the 1st down to the 36-yard line. Let's take a look now at the remaining schedule. Not an easy one, Dan, for the Bengals.
No, if Cincinnati gets into the playoffs, it's going to be simply because they've earned it. Every one of those teams a winner, and some of them the best teams in the league. Denver and New York stick out of there. If Cincinnati is able to win this division, get into the playoffs, they've got it coming to them. That's 77% winning percentage. That's impressive.
Now the Browns have a much easier schedule.
Yeah, only a 32% on the winning percentage side, and you look at that right there, and there's not a team on there with a winning record with the exception of the Bengals.
Key for the Bengals is that they've got to beat the Browns so that they'll have beaten them twice if they end up in a tie or win. And Wilson off left tackle using some more time. So the key for the Bengals is to stay within a game when they play the Browns and beat Cleveland.
Yeah, because if they have the 2 wins over Cleveland, then Cleveland has to finish a game ahead of Cincinnati to get into the playoffs. If they end up tied, that'll definitely favor the Bengals. But boy, what a finishing close we're going to have for Cincinnati. I mean, that is really a bear of a schedule.
Under 4 minutes remaining in the 4th quarter. It was 21-20 Bengals at halftime, and they've had nothing but a field goal in the 2nd half. 2nd and 8 at the 38. Brooks on a fake reverse is tackled in play, and the clock continues to run. With 3.5 to play, Isaac Holt and Scott Studwell on the stop. Of course, the Vikings badly need to get that ball back for one last burst. At 6-5, the last thing the Vikings need is a loss, even though if there is one team they could afford to lose to, it would have to be a team out of the conference.
Yeah, because Minnesota, after today, there are 4 remaining games: Tampa Bay, Green Bay, Houston, and New Orleans. If they could lose this one, it's best to lose an out-of-conference game, as their conference record is one of the tiebreakers.
4 wide receivers in there on 3rd and 6. Esiason loops it. Caught by Eddie Brown, and a 1st down for the Bengals just shy of midfield. Carl Lee on the stop.
And a 1st down by about maybe less than a yard. That time Eddie Brown knew exactly where to make his break to get the 1st down, and he did. And now 1st downs start to kill Minnesota. Not necessarily points. 1st downs will do it now.
And Minnesota may soon have to start thinking of calling timeouts on defense. 1st and 10 at the Bengal 48-yard line. 24-20, Cincinnati leading. Wilson gets to midfield. Joey Browner on the tackle. And a timeout was called by the Vikings with 2:05 to go, and they'll get another free timeout at the 2-minute warning. You started talking, Dan, in fact, went down the Vikings' remaining schedule. And, of course, after this game, the rest is against conference opponents.
And if you look at that record, only New Orleans, if you look at that schedule, rather, only New Orleans has a winning record. And Minnesota will have that game at the Metrodome in Minneapolis. So if Minnesota could somehow, even if they could come out and win this, boy, what a head start they'd have working against those final 4 teams.
Well, that's right. If they don't win this game, the Vikings would have to win their last 4 and then go to a 10-6 record, and they may have a chance to do it. These are the division leaders right now, and you know that either the Giants or the Redskins will get one of the wild cards unless something dramatic happens. The Rams are clinging to the lead in the West over the 49ers, and the rest of the teams, this is the way the barrel looks right now.
And you have to look at the Dallas Cowboys and the way they traditionally finished so strong. You'd have to say that they are really one of the contenders for that extra wild card. It's not unusual for the NFC East to produce both of the NFC's wild card teams.
Coming up next, of course, the Cowboys against the Redskins, and something's got to give in that game, of course.
And that'll be at RFK Stadium in Washington, D.C. Boy, they'll be rocking on there today.
Buffalo has taken a lead over New England. Second and 8 at midfield. Esiason being chased by Brown. Throws it. It's caught. Collinsworth. First down, no. Shy by a yard. But he made something out of nothing. And Esiason looked as if he was hurt for the moment. Chris Martin on the tackle, and he is hurting somewhat.
Well, you can teach some things, but you cannot teach this. This is nothing more than raw physical ability. Boomer Esiason. Look at this sidearm throw. Boy, what a dart back across field to Collinsworth. And that's just one guy taking it upon himself to do. But boy, did he take a shot. He'll spin back to the inside, work across the field. Let's see what kind of a hit he takes. Joey Browner from behind, David Howard from in front. And luckily, the Bengals have a timeout.
It's a 2-minute warning here with 1:55 on the clock. Has come into the ball game for the Bengals on 3rd and 1 at the Minnesota 43. And Esiason dives for it. And we'll just wait. Pointing going on. The Vikings signal to their bench that they're short. Munoz is pointing that they have the first down. They're going to measure. Now, Dan, if they have the first down, that's a big plus, of course, for the Bengals. But if they don't, what do you do if you're Sam White?
Well, you punt the football and try to get punted out of bounds inside the 10-yard line. I don't know that he could afford to go for it and not get it.
So this is a very big measurement if that's the case, because
now he may run a triple reverse on 4th down. I mean, I don't. I think they've got the first down.
Jerry Burns' face tells the story.
I don't think that he believes that he's gotten the fair end of the spotting game today.
No.
Been some critical measurements, and by and large, they have gone in favor of Cincinnati.
So the Bengals have a big first down at the 42-yard line. And knowing that the Steelers and Browns are tied in the 4th quarter of their game, it's not inconceivable, of course, that Cincinnati could take over the lead in the division. Meanwhile, Dallas has jumped all over Washington, 7-0. That team follows for most of them. Not for the viewers in the Cincinnati region, however. Brooks trying to stay in bounds, can't. Stops the clock with 1:15 to go, and that's the last thing you want to do.
No, that's not a very smart play by James Brooks. He got too close to the side. He's better off just sitting down.
Studwell and Martin on the tackle. 1:15 to go. And now we correct the score. Washington has taken the lead over Dallas. 7-0 in the first quarter. 2nd and 7 on the 39-yard line.
Well, that's a free timeout for Minnesota.
And they give it to Wilson to chew up some more time, and Wilson to the 35-yard line. It'll be 3rd down and about 2.5. And now the Vikings have to call their second timeout. Howard and Newton on the stop. So Minnesota has 1 timeout left. And it'll be 3rd down and about 3.
Here comes the entire offensive team over to the sidelines. This is something unusual. Cincinnati, just about the only team in the league that does this. They bring them all the way across.
And look at that score. Green Bay has taken a lead over the Chicago Bears, 10-9. This doesn't really affect the Vikings much because they're 3 games behind Chicago and little chance of overtaking Chicago. But on Thanksgiving Day, one of the great traditional matchups. Doesn't matter what their records are year to year. I remember in the 50s and the 60s, Green Bay and Detroit was a special day. Bobby Lane, Tobin Road, all those players. Huh?
And that'll be a 12 noon Eastern time, and it's just, you're right, I agree with you. It wouldn't be Thanksgiving without Green Bay and Detroit.
It's been a while since we had that matchup, too, on Thanksgiving Day on CBS. And here's a tie between Denver and the New York Giants. And you know they're cheering that score at RFK Stadium. 3rd down and 3 at the 35. Vikings trying to hold off, get the ball back, trailing 24-20. 10 plays in this drive. Play action. They loop it to Stanley Wilson. 1st down. Wilson stays in bounds. And Wilson is out of bounds at the 1. Carly and Joey Browner on a 34-yard play.
If you take a big risk, often you'll get a big gain. This time Boomer on the little rollout, and Stanley Wilson, look how smart he is, not going out of bounds. Goes ahead, now he's going to say, hey, I'm going to try to get in. It really doesn't matter if I go out of bounds now. Fine effort by Stanley Wilson, and I guess we'll give some credit to Sam White. Good call, because it worked.
It's 1st and goal at the 1, and the Bengals 1 yard away from putting this game away. Was the first catch of the year by Stanley Wilson, who has scored twice today. And Wilson now goes, I was going to say in for the 3rd, but he may have been stopped short of the goal line. Clock continues to run. 46 seconds to go. He did not get in. And now the Vikings call their last timeout. The Minnesota Vikings use their last timeout. And this has been the kind of a season for the Vikings. Frustrating for Jerry Burns, though they have been much improved over last year. 4 of their 5 losses have been by a total of 14 points, and they trail here by 4 points. With 45 seconds to go. Let's talk about some of the tough games the Vikings have had.
In Week 8 against Cleveland, they blew a 17-3 halftime lead. They lost it there when Matt Barr and his field goal misses. The final score, Cleveland 23-20.
How about this game we did? In overtime.
That's Gary Clark. Look at that. He's going to take it in. They lose to Washington 44-38.
And last week, Raul Alegre kicked the field goal after the Giants converted a 4th and 17. How heartbreaking it's been for the Vikings, and today is no different.
And those losses all against 3 very good football teams.
2nd and goal at the 1, and the Vikings are all out of timeout. And Esiason not going for the end zone, just dropped down, and knowing that the Vikings are out of timeouts, that may be the last play of the ball game. And the Bengals will go 8-4. And the Browns have taken a 31-28 lead over the Steelers. So at worst, Cincinnati will remain tied for 1st in the AFC Central. Meanwhile, the Vikings will go 6-6. So for Dan Dierdorf, this is Dick Stockton saying so long from Riverfront Stadium in Cincinnati. The final score, the Bengals 24, the Vikings 20. You've been watching CBS Sports coverage of the National Football League.